This episode is brought to you by PS Kitchen, located at 246 West 48th Street, right in between Times Square and Hell's Kitchen in Manhattan. PS Kitchen is dishing out sophisticated fare using fresh ingredients. I love their PS Burger. It tastes so good, and their fries are really good too. It's worth every dollar. PS has signature cocktails, a late-night menu, and a full event space upstairs, which I actually get to record some of these podcast episodes in. So check it out, ps-kitchen.com. They also serve brunch, which is as good as dinner, I imagine. I haven't had it yet, but I'm going to have to check it out real soon. And if all of this doesn't sound amazing enough already, they're open for lunch, brunch, and dinner until 11 p.m. Sunday to Wednesday and until 2 a.m. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It's plant-based, and all profits go to charity. And the owners are really nice, too. So check them out, ps-kitchen.com.
Good morning, Vietnam!
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
To infinity and beyond!
Some people without brains do an awful lot of talking, don't they?
It's classified.
You talking to me?
I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you.
I can't fly!
Expecto Patronum!
Entertainment X.
You never know what you're gonna get.
In this episode, I sit down with Katie Lavin, who works on brand marketing and strategy. She's held a bunch of different positions for a bunch of different companies, and we cover a little bit of each one. I am fascinated by this conversation because this is something completely out of my knowledge frame, and I want to learn more about it, and I hope you do too. So this is a really great episode, and she covers a lot of ways that companies go about marketing and creating brand strategy. I find it a bit interesting to cover this topic because nowadays, your brand, your personal brand, has become very important in terms of Instagram, Facebook, all of that jazz. A lot of people will tell you that, it's important to have a presence online because online is where everyone is. So to get a professional perspective of this whole brand thing is very interesting. Katie, thank you for talking to me for a solid hour over these topics, and I hope everyone listening enjoys. We are back, and today with me is Katie Lavin. I said
Correct.
it right.
You did.
Of course I said it right. We've known each other forever, Katie.
Yes.
No, we met actually at Digital Hollywood. Was that 2 weeks ago now?
Just about, yeah.
And you were there speaking about, it was like digital marketing and branding and a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, specific to the influencer and the creator space.
Yeah. This is fun because we're going to have so much jargon that we're going to say, but we're going to break it down so everyone knows exactly what it is. And I promise you guys, this stuff will apply to your own personal brand.
Yes.
It does.
It does.
It will. So I want to start with brand strategist.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's, again, a lot of fancy words.
It is.
A brand strategist looks at a brand, and a brand can mean so many things. It can be a person, place, a thing. It can be the Tide detergent you see on the shelves. It can be you as an actor or an actress or an individual in this crazy world that we live in. It can be a venue, the Staples Center. It can be Madison Square Garden.
Literally a person, place, or thing.
Yeah, literally, as we define proper nouns.
Yeah.
And you take that brand, that entity, and you figure out what it stands for in an emotional level. It's not usually consumer facing. It's usually for internal purposes only. It creates the mission, vision, and goals of that brand and formulates them down into an elevator pitch so that when your brand comes in contact with another person, they feel a sense of emotion and a connection to it. And therefore, all the other marketing messages can come to life with that same thematic at its core.
Okay, so you're working with internal. So you're not working external with the consumers. You're working internal with pitching it to other companies, or within the company.
Within the company and within the teams working on the marketing campaigns and the advertising
Interesting.
campaigns or the events that will then be sponsored by or brought to you by that particular brand.
So what are like the challenges associated with that? Like getting it down to, like, for instance, do you get it down to a certain amount of words? Is it like you try to get everything down to a sentence?
I had a boss once who challenged us to get it down to 7 words or less.
I love that.
Because if you can't say it in 7 words or less,
Yes!
then it doesn't make sense. It doesn't resonate, and
No.
then it requires probably a multitude of conversations to explain it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't explain it in 7 words or less, then it's not going to resonate with
No,
consumers.
people stop listening.
Exactly.
Like, for instance, all jingles are like literally 7 notes. Like PC Richards, like dun dun
Yeah.
dun dun dun, or like da 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 da. It's like those are all literally 7 notes,
Yeah.
7 words, to get it down to that
Yeah.
core, the core value
Yeah,
of what
exactly.
it is. There was something else I was going to say with that. I'm getting so hyped over this
Yeah.
because I was reading a book. It was called How to Get What You Deserve by Seth Godin. I don't know if
Okay.
it rings a bell. that
I
guy.
know the author. I don't know if I read that particular book.
I think it's
but-
one of his first books out of print now.
Okay.
It's like $2 deep in Amazon if you ever look for it.
Okay.
But he talks about, when you're talking about yourself, because some of us like to, some of us don't,
Yeah.
getting it down to the shortest, shorter, and short stories
Yeah.
of yourself. And short is like 5 sentences, short is 2, and shortest is 1.
Yeah.
And if you can describe what you're doing in 1 sentence, it just helps other people understand what they can do for you or
Yeah.
how you can help them.
And it creates clarity so that when you then have to talk internally or talk to consumers, if you boil it down to such a simplistic point of view, then the articulation and the creative and the TV commercials or the events that then pop up around this brand are all interconnected and have this clarity that you wouldn't have otherwise gotten if it all didn't come from a core strategy.
Yeah.
A core, simple, thematic.
So you take that, you create a sentence,
Mm-hmm.
that is then projected to all employees within the company, so
Yeah.
everyone's on the same like mission page
Yeah.
statement.
Yeah.
And then is everything created from that?
Yeah, it becomes the headline of the brief. So
Okay.
the brief is built from the strategy, and then there will be some tactical things, some deliverables that you have to hit. Like in this particular campaign, we need to have 5 TV commercials and 18 web banners and 3 pieces of custom content. And so that becomes much more achievable for the people actually fulfilling those, whether they be the creative team or the media team or the marketing team. But again, it all ladders up to this vision of the strategy, and the strategy can articulate itself in so many different ways across the different media touch points.
Yeah. So let's talk about, curious, if we could talk about
Yeah.
the Super Bowl a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you were doing some work with, was that the most recent one?
Yeah. So the one where the Philadelphia Eagles, shout out to the hometown one.
Yes,
So,
let them know.
Yep.
Shout out to the hometown.
Exactly.
Yeah, so what were so you worked with,
Tide.
Tide.
So I was freelancing at an agency that was then working with the Tide client. And so they had spent, like all other Super Bowl advertisers do, an exorbitant amount of money to be part of the game.
$500,000.
Per second, potentially.
Yeah, right.
To be part of the advertising and part of the whole Super Bowl experience. And so what we had done at the agency was build the strategy. So looking at the Tide brand, what their brand promise was to their consumers, what the emotions and the mindset is of the NFL fan and the individuals. In this case, the Super Bowl, pretty much everybody watches it, but there is a core set of NFL super fans that go above and beyond, anybody who's tuning in on Super Bowl Sunday just because it's a social gathering and there's nothing else on television. And then built the strategy that would then live across all the digital touch points. So custom content, player integrations.
What is that? Player integration.
Player integration. So as part of a sponsorship contract, most brands get a certain number of dollars to spend towards players. So the players then get
sweet.
as hired as talent to work on
like
behalf of the brand.
influencers would be.
Yeah,
they come in
influencers
and-
or even actors and actresses. Like
That's so
you create
cool.
a TV commercial, you have to pay an actor or an actress to star in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, they get an allotment of dollars that they would get time with players.
Was that challenging working on that, or was it pretty straightforward? Is that a
It was
I don't
challenging
know.
because the creative, which is the TV commercial, was made before the strategy. So they just wanted to do something
Okay.
cool, compelling, and different. Which
Tide did?
yes,
Okay.
which is not a strategy, unfortunately.
Yes.
A funny commercial is not a strategic commercial.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can be one and the same, but
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's a chicken and egg
Like
situation.
that's the action behind it, but you still need the driving force, the fire, the little match that lights
Exactly.
the action. So what were the challenges? Because I mean, at the end of the day, and this is like, I'm Joe Schmo here.
Yeah.
Is like, it's a football game and it's laundry detergent.
Yep.
How do you make that interesting?
It
Or
goes.
how do you connect to someone emotionally with that?
Yeah. So you have to figure out ultimately who's going to be buying Tide, and in this case, it's mostly mothers.
I was just going to say, yeah,
it's
mothers.
mostly moms. So what do moms care about? What are the emotional payoffs that she gets from using Tide? And digging into that and using not only anecdotal data, but also some qualitative and quantitative research that is either proprietary to the brand or that agencies and individuals do on behalf of their clients.
And by that, you mean, and I'm sorry, I'm
No,
going to
that's
keep
okay,
interrupting
yeah.
you. This is going to be a
Please
long
do.
hour.
Please do.
They go out and they do research on the individuals through like grocery stores or like
They can be
feedback
shop-alongs, they can be feedback
surveys.
surveys, they can be ethnographies. It can be a myriad of different ways that
test
they get.
subjects. They have people come in and
Yeah, focus groups.
oh yeah, focus groups.
Yeah.
That's what they're called.
Yeah.
Test subjects.
Test
It sounds a little
subjects.
like oh.
That's very scientific.
What are we doing with the Tide buyers?
Yeah.
So then connecting that to mothers.
Yeah.
Let's just go with that. So mothers, the emotional connection for me, I would imagine, is sons and daughters washing their kids' clothes.
Yeah.
And or keeping the house running. I mean, an emotional family connection, a familial. Am I way off when
No,
I say that?
that's a good way to look at it.
Is that
'cause
the
it's-
first on the surface simple answer?
It's the beginning of continuing to dive into that. So yeah, it's the maternal sort of nurturing aspect, keeping the family clean and making sure that everything is appropriate, and that their appearances both inward and outward are just in a way that they feel is representative
yeah.
of who they are and acceptable. But I think it's also just the payoff that moms get from not only the accomplishment of completing laundry,
Yeah.
which is yes, it's a chore and a task, and we probably 90% of us wish we didn't have to do it and put it on the to-do list.
I'm part of that 90%.
Yeah. But there's that payoff, but then there's also the preparedness of yes, you're right, like showing the family that they truly love them in a way that seems materialistic and unimportant, but in so many ways is valuable and emotionally charged.
Yeah. So then how do you connect that? I know I'm just going to like
Yeah.
grill you
Yeah.
on all of this. I'm like trying to think of the word. How do you connect that to football?
So then it goes into, well, in some ways there's the creatives that come into the equation, and I will never say that I'm a creative person in the advertising and marketing world.
I see.
There's the account people and the creative people, and if anybody
Okay.
saw Mad Men, I'm more the Don Draper type. Like, you're the account
Okay.
people, you kind of like work with the client, work everything
I
through, and the
see.
creatives come in with these
Crazy idea.
ideas, and we're gonna make pigs fly, and then
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff. But yeah, so connecting it back to football, and answering your question is, you think about all the preparedness and the camaraderie and the feelings that the players get
Yeah.
on game day, not only for each other but also for their fans, and how does that manifest itself? And so there's the emotional sort of parallels you can draw, but then there's also some anecdotal ones where in today's day and age football is played on artificial turf, and people are the sign of a good game is
Grass
not,
stains.
is not grass stains
Oh, it's not
anymore.
grass stains.
So
Oh.
it's like you can kind of have the creatives can kind of run and have a play on that sort of shift in how the sport
Yeah.
is actually being
See, I
executed.
didn't even know that.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. So then the creatives come in, they create, like for instance, they'll take the talent or the players,
Yeah.
and they'll come in and film this episode or
Yeah.
whatever, a
Yeah.
commercial
Yep.
bit.
More or
And
less,
maybe it's
yeah.
like the player's mom is washing his clothes or something
Yeah.
as a kid or something,
Yeah.
and they grow up, which is cute. But okay, so that's so fascinating, because I imagine, you're doing this often, and to find these connections and to keep it emotionally charged every day,
Yeah.
because I mean it's still the same brand, but
Right.
keeping up with that loyalty, I guess
Exactly.
you call it, fans
Yep.
or whatever you would call that. And I wonder what are some of the challenges of keeping that fan base, because you have to keep it fresh and new,
Yeah.
but keep it the same because
Yeah.
they're expecting
Right.
something
So
similar.
you have twofold, right? You have the consistency with the fans that you've already amassed, but then you keep them happy and fulfilled, but you also want new fans too.
Yeah.
So you use all these stages and all these platforms, whether they be as big as the Super Bowl or as small as a piece of digital content that goes out through a partner's website.
Mm-hmm.
to try and excite new fans to bring into the fold and to try the product or to, dive a little bit deeper and get more intimate with the other service or individual that you're trying to market.
Yeah. Is it a challenge with the digital era, which is like not really an era, it's been going on for a hot minute now, is you're like, challenges with that in creating these, so my next question was about the creating quality custom content, which is more jargon for y'all.
Yeah.
Challenges with working on, for instance, like Instagram or the internet, because it's not just on TV and it's not just magazines and TV anymore, or newspapers. It's getting these short clips, slipped in someone's Instagram story or something.
Yeah.
Are there challenges with that, or is it just different?
I think the nice thing is that we've overcome the idea that marketers are taking a TV commercial, so a traditional 30 or 60-second spot, and just cutting it up to be shorter to live on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat.
Snapchat, forgot about that.
Yeah, it doesn't. Fans are sort of adverse to that now because it seems so out of place. So as a result, we've been able to, as marketers, successfully get the time, the resources, and have a better understanding of each of the different platforms to make custom content specific to how people are consuming on Facebook, how people are consuming on Instagram, and what they're consuming, and also how to beat the algorithms too, because video performs better across both. 15 seconds or less performs better across both. However, Instagram also has a hard stop at 15 seconds. So there's some quirks that you have to kind of dial into for each of the different platforms when you make content for it. But as we've gotten more data and have been able to test a lot more content on each of the platforms, we've also gotten better as marketers to make specific videos and imagery that resonates with people most across each.
Yeah, across each platform. Sense? Yeah, it does. Yeah, it really does.
But again, all built from the same brief, all built from the same strategy. So it's all coherent. Yeah. Even when you're enlisting creators to build on your behalf for each of those platforms, it all comes from the same brief and the same strategy, because you don't want one creator, even if, again, everyone's audiences are different and we understand that. So the actual execution will vary, but you don't want one creative making everything in blue and another creative making everything in red and expecting it to all sit together. It has to have a through line. Yeah,
it does. Yeah, that's so interesting, because I saw I don't know if you've seen the ads for Budweiser lately with where they're like dilly dilly.
Yeah.
Clever.
Yeah,
because now it creates activity with the brand that you get to do. It's just so interesting when you create these, like, for instance, these memorable moments you can recreate in your home with the brand.
Well, that brand does it well. If you remember back in the day, there was the "What's Up" guys too.
Oh my God.
They've had a couple of repeatable instances where they've completely changed culture and tapped into a zeitgeist, which I think every brand wants to do.
What do you call it? Is it
like the cultural zeitgeist? Like pop culture, people's behavior, sort of what's going on. I think that's a goal for most brands, is to have an impact in some way, shape, or form. One of my bosses always made it a mandate that anything we did in marketing had to have earned media attached to it, which meant it had to go get PR.
Okay.
You have to be able to pitch it to the New York Times and to BuzzFeed and
that it wasn't too.
And that they'd have to want to pick it up and talk about it. Like they'd have to want to create editorial content all about what you're doing.
Yeah.
One time we worked with, I was working on a film called Ice Age Collision Course.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's
heard of it?
Yes, one of the 5 in this series. I think it's the only animated title to have 5 movies in its portfolio, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a 6th or 7th. But
Toy Story will come up on that soon, right?
I know,
Aren't they
right?
4 or something?
I think so.
Yeah.
Anyway, but we worked with a team out of the UK, and part of the movie takes place in outer space. So we took Scratch's his name, his acorn, because that's like prevalent in every movie, and we shot it into outer space with this team out in the UK, and we videotaped the whole thing and watched it come back to Earth, and USA Today picked it up and covered it and wrote about it. And so you want to do things like that where you're going to do some silly stunt and put it on the internet, and to your point about like what is digital marketing? Anything online, I guess you can call as digital marketing.
Yeah.
But it has to have earned media potential and have so much more legs than just that one video content, because it's so hard to break through, because people are split between so many different social platforms, so many different websites. Our attention
much
span
noise.
is that of a goldfish. Like,
Yeah.
it really takes a lot of effort to have multiple sources pointing a consumer back to the brand.
It does. It does. Because it's so interesting. So, like, a slight segue, because I want to
Yeah.
talk about Little Bits next.
Yeah.
Which I'll explain to everyone listening. This is so applicable because, at least in my field, or performers,
Yeah.
they have this there's like now this expectation to be putting out your own content.
Yeah.
We need to see photos of you. You need to stay in the spotlight
Yeah.
of your own light and have
Yeah.
your followers, which is all like very contrived. And I don't know that it works very well to get viewers on a show if you have a lot of followers. I don't know. That could be a
Right.
separate episode in
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
But to create that and to have that, well, one drive, but also the creativity behind it. Like
Yeah. What differentiates you, right?
Yeah, what specifically do I want to stand for?
Yeah.
Because you have to take a stand
Yeah.
and find your tribe and have the people who agree with you come to you and
Yeah.
create that. Did you guys work on the float for Thanksgiving Day Parade for Ice Age? Was that also part of like a marketing?
That was a complimentary team when I was
That's so cool.
the sponsorships and promotions team did that. Yeah.
That's so cool because it's like been in the parade now. Like,
Yeah.
it's like a regular.
Yeah.
He's a regular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, once you make those balloons of that size, you hope they get more than one use.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I'd hate to waste all of that.
Yeah.
I wonder what
It's a lot of hot air.
it's a lot. It is figuratively, literally now.
Yeah.
Okay. So Little Bits.
Yes.
These Star Wars Little Bits. So I was,
Yes.
okay. So this like R2D2.
Yes.
He's like, I called it electronic Legos. It was magnets though.
It's magnets. So they're, they're magnets. They're motors that come together through magnets. So
Yeah.
the magnets help kids understand how to build the robots, because
Yeah.
they either go together or they don't.
Yeah.
And they're
it's-
color coded.
So it's like,
It helps.
it's idiot proof.
Yeah.
Not really. Kind
Not
of.
really. He might be going backwards and you thought you'd be going forwards, but
Again, I have not played with it, so
Yeah.
it might not be like idiot
it's a
proof.
good
'cause, like, I'm-
45-minute build time. Like I
It
have
is.
to say, it's a solid build time.
But now, is this considered? So this is an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Is this a toy?
Yes.
But it's also marketed as a educational tool.
It's
That's
an educational
fun
toy.
and exciting.
It's an
an
educational
educational toy,
toy.
which all good toys are. Fisher Price has
Yes.
done really good with that.
Yeah. Lincoln Logs back in the day.
Lincoln Logs.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're throwing it back.
Yep.
So, in regards to the Star Wars Little Bits,
Yes.
the digital custom content that you created. See, I'm
Yes.
getting better at this.
Yes.
Was anything that's not on TV?
Correct. There was no budget for a TV campaign, so everything that we made
Interesting.
had to live exclusively online. We also didn't format it for TV, so again, going back to the different requirements across videos.
Yeah.
Every social platform has their own specifications of how you finish your videos, and then it differs from what TV specs are, and differs from what cinema specs are. So working as a
Like what camera you use?
how you finish the
even
film, like frames per second and
all
things
that,
like that.
yeah.
So as a marketer, we're given a budget and you have to make decisions based off the media plan, how
Yeah.
you're going to finish the content, where it's going to live. And
But kids watch TV, I would think. I would think out of
They
all things
do.
to market, like TV would be the obvious
it's
Sunday
also
morning.
the most expensive.
True.
Yep.
So then what were you guys putting it on? Like what platform?
So we put it on, we bought media across a myriad of sites that kids typically go to. So think
Okay.
like Nick.com, Disney.com, things of
Yeah.
that nature.
Yeah.
We also gave it to influencers, so kid influencers or kid content creators, I guess you could call them, to
Those
put on their
exist?
YouTube. Oh, yeah.
See, I didn't know
And they're
this.
expensive.
Oh, I believe it.
Oh, yeah, because we did an
Yeah.
entire unboxing series with them, too.
Like
so,
a review.
just
kind of.
starting with the unboxing, and then they would build it. So they reviewed it to some extent, but the focus of the video was the unboxing aspect of it. Because those command extremely high view counts and have a really engaged audience.
Big time.
Big time.
Yeah, because once a video starts, I mean, depending if they put ads within the center of the video, it's
Yeah.
like it's a straight watch, and they're
Right.
usually like 5 minutes, 10 minutes
Yeah.
long. for kids.
And so we did some retargeting, and we used them on Facebook and Instagram. And we, again, put them out with some partner websites that they would run them on, like fatherly.com, places where mothers and fathers would be spending their time, especially prior to the holiday season, looking at videos, looking for reviews. It was on Amazon and Walmart as well. They were also retailers of the product, so they were able to use the content on their sites and give them to their influencers within their own networks.
Yeah. Are there, so side question, I don't even
Yeah.
know if you know the answer to this. Maybe you will.
Maybe not.
Those children, I call them children
Yes.
influencers.
Yeah.
Are those like 20-year-olds
Oh no, they're like between the ages of 6 and 11,
with a camera?
and a dad or a mom. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. And maybe a sibling.
See, now I'm going to go find this, and then
Yeah.
YouTube's going to suggest I watch all these like kid
Yeah.
videos. That's so interesting because
Yeah.
I come from, but it's also those algorithms that are built into like Instagram.
Yeah.
So all the photos that pop up in my search feed, it's not going to be that because I'm
Right.
not looking at that.
Right.
So there's going to be like all the influencers I see, which are like
Correct.
20 to 30 or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. There's
See,
an entire network of children under the age of 15.
Yeah.
And probably as young as like 4 or 5
Yeah.
that are doing influencer videos and unboxing content and playing with toys and doing reviews. And even some of them who started off on TV, like, I don't know if you ever watched The Ellen Show.
Yeah.
But she had Rosie and the 2 girls from England that were cousins, Sophia Grace and Rosie.
I feel like I saw this, but it's like
Okay,
not
now
ringing
they're influencers on YouTube. They have their own YouTube channels. They
because of the Ellen Show.
Yeah.
Well, that guy recently who did the food. Do you remember this kid? He was doing like food review.
Oh, no.
So he was talking. I think the one video I saw was like macaroni and cheese.
Okay.
And they were making it, but they started to put like, I don't know, like celery in it and like some like random stuff you
Yeah.
wouldn't exactly put in mac
Yeah.
and cheese. And it's a hilarious video. You can literally just like look this up on
Okay.
YouTube. And Ellen had him on a show, and now he's like part of her team.
Yeah.
Like he's one of her, one of the personalities within
Yeah.
the Ellen
Yeah.
Network. That's so interesting to see the future of marketing and the future of getting content out to people because
Yeah.
there is so much noise.
Yeah.
And like if you watch daytime television, there's nothing good on. But like on YouTube, there's always, because
There's
you're looking
always something.
specifically for what you want.
Right,
And the
right.
algorithms are doing it for you.
Right.
So going back to this, creating these like 7-word missions
Yeah.
and working on all these products, did you ever come up against any difficulties or like something that they tried and it like kind of failed, but it taught you a lesson through that failure in regards to creating these custom content?
Yeah, I think that's one of
digital content?
the blessings of working in the digital space is the immediate reaction you get from
That's
people,
so true.
and the amount of data that you get for every single thing that you do. I mean, so even if it's something was somewhat of a failure, there's so many learnings from it, based off either engagement or lack of engagement.
Like, what do you find? Is there anything specific that comes up with engagement? Like that you guys kind of tried on Instagram and maybe it was like, oh, people don't want to see that, or we need more music. You're like,
right.
yeah,
I think that, I mean, the low hanging fruit on that one is working, especially in the entertainment space, is anything with a high profile actor or actress performs phenomenally well.
Of course.
Anything without them, you really have to make people want to watch or want to look at it. It's a low hanging fruit, like having a name or celebrity or even celebrity music tied to it.
Yeah.
It's like the gold star with content.
That's so interesting because how easy it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy if you get a celebrity on there and then all of a sudden it's like, boom.
And it also makes it easier because they'll probably want to share it because they star in it. And so they already have X million of followers. So your impressions and your reach get exponentially greater.
Way faster.
yeah.
Yeah. Because people are looking for that person. Like they're
Exactly.
seeking out your ad
Yes.
and they don't even know it.
Right.
Wow.
Which is why it's great to make custom content and not just adverts, because then it's more authentic, it's more interesting, it's more engaging, it's a look behind the curtain, it's something different than you would normally get through a really stylized TV commercial that you would see on NBC or ABC or something.
So how custom is custom when you say custom?
Like custom scripts, custom access, behind the scenes content
Of their life?
of their life, of a moment. It can be scripted, but it's just it's something you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
And that's why people are compelled to put it online.
Yeah. 'Cause it's different. Stands
Yeah.
out. So you talking about being so we're going to move into another position that you've held with being
Yeah.
VP of digital strategy at ID.
Yeah.
And now, and I said this before the episode, please fact check me because the internet is an amazing
Yeah.
and a false place sometimes.
Yes.
So I love the AOL Build series.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much, for anyone who doesn't know, they interview influencers, stars, people who have made a difference, made a change,
Yeah.
done something extraordinary. And it's like right downtown here in New York.
Yeah.
They
8th and Broadway, I believe.
and they're only on YouTube, right? And their website.
And their website.
And so you've worked through that. So I want to talk about that AOL
Yeah.
Build and then ABC Quantico and just like what you did for them, I guess in brief.
Yeah.
And then any challenges or like what you learned from creating that.
Yeah. So with Build, we were basically tasked twofold. One of our partner teams within the agency was getting talent onto the show because, again, like we were just saying, big names and celebrities drive tune-in. So that was something that the team was tasked. And then from our side, we were helping them build out the strategy of once you got talent onto the show, how are you promoting it? What kind of custom content were you putting out to complement the episodes to drive tune-in and awareness? Because I think one of the challenges that Build has is you mentioned, it's this fantastic studio with great access to really thought leaders and
Yeah, really big thought leaders,
you know,
yeah.
influencers in their own right across a myriad of categories. But the typical person doesn't know much about it, or the numbers could definitely be, the numbers of tune-in could be much higher than they currently are.
If more people knew. More
Yeah,
people would-
so it's like, what other things could you be doing with sound bites or behind the scenes footage or photography, or the way that the studio is designed to create more Instagram shots and things like that then get pushed out across not only AOL's own channels, but then also the celebrities' channels, and making sure that they're following through with some of that media potential. And then what partner content could you dish out
Yeah.
to other editorial pieces to then get coverage as well.
Was there a 7-word phrase for AOL Build?
No.
Or not that
It was more just
you
the
would-
marketing mix.
Because I don't know. I can't put it in 7 words. Because it's not one thing. I mean, it's an interview, an
Yeah.
educated interview, but it's not. It doesn't just focus on like entertainment, or it doesn't just focus on
I think it's an
politics.
access. It's an access thing, right? Because it's a live studio
Yeah, and it's long form,
and it's long
which
form.
is awesome.
Yeah.
Because those short ones just don't do it. Which is like what is on like The View and stuff. It's like cut it
Right.
up, get it out, spit it up, get it out.
Yeah.
and it's
yeah.
like
on to the next. On to the
yeah.
next commercial break.
But like this is where these long conversations are where like the good stuff comes
Yeah.
out. So interesting, so interesting. And I haven't yet to go down there and see it in person, and I want to. But so hopping over real quick
Yeah.
to, well, we're going to go back and forth between the
Okay.
two. Quantico.
Yes.
That's an ongoing show.
Not anymore. I believe it got canceled last season.
no.
Yeah.
Shows how much I know.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons they brought us on, was to try and figure out what they could do to build a fandom to help increase viewership, which then obviously dictates whether shows
Whether
get
it
renewed
stays
or not.
on.
Yeah.
What did you guys do?
We use Priyanka a lot. So Priyanka, the star of the show, has a huge following across her individual channels.
Yeah.
So again, what kind of compelling content could we create to then give her to push out to her fans, who would then want to either
Tune
or
in.
to both engage as well as to share it as well, which would ultimately drive tune in.
Of course.
Yeah.
What was the ultimate decision on canceling it? Now, I know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
People didn't tune in.
Yeah.
Was it just, so I just answered that question. Was it just because people weren't tuning in, or was it a show that the storyline wasn't? Is that a complicated question I just
It's a
asked?
complicated question, and I think the simple answer for just the typical viewer is there weren't enough people watching it. It comes
Yeah.
down to the network, because it's a production cost, right? So
It
do
is.
they move forward with that show knowing that they're going to have an uphill battle to get more viewers, or do they just scrap it and buy into a new show and start
Let it
something different?
go.
Yeah.
Which is usually what'll just happen.
Yeah.
Okay. So in creating all of this custom content and creating
Yeah.
these, well, that's about the most jargon I know.
Yeah.
Have you come up against any difficulties and or failures? And I know you said failures are short because the return is so quick.
Yeah.
Because you can find out in a day if something,
Right.
and there's like a term for that, like pivoting, right? You
Yeah,
change course
you pivot, yep.
instead of. Is there anything that is there any stories that stand out in your mind as like, oh, that was a big learning experience?
I think that there's been a lot.
Where to begin?
Yeah, it is one of those sort of where to begin moments. I think going back to Going back to my days when I was working at an agency here in New York, working on the Verizon account, and it was, again, to date myself, when Droid was just coming into the market, and so it was like iPhone 1, so that
remember
puts
that.
us back like 10 years,
Yeah, it
if
does.
not more. And just the expectation that people were going to care for technology at that point in time, and they really didn't. They just wanted to know it worked.
Yeah.
And so doing this sort of like emotionally branded campaign really wasn't what was going to drive the needle or move business. They just wanted to know, does the phone work? Does it have a camera? Is it better than
Basic phone.
Yeah, or competitor X's phone. That's all they wanted to know about, which makes marketing, in my opinion, somewhat boring, because it just becomes a laundry list of tech specs and us against
Specs
them.
and whatever.
Yeah. And so I think we were just ahead of our time with something like that, where we wanted to create a mantra and a sort of a rally cry for a brand that it became representative of who you are. I think in terms of technology and devices, that's where we are today. But it wasn't where we were then. So we had to pivot, and we had to reevaluate what we were putting into the market to really drive sales, because that's what marketing's paid to
What'd
do.
you end up doing?
Getting into the tech spec game.
Just
Ours is better than
spitting
yours.
it out.
Yeah.
The numbers of whatever the zoom
Yeah.
is on the camera.
Exactly.
You're bringing up another great point. And this stuff fascinates me because it's so applicable to we all have personal brands.
Yeah.
You have that person who complains in line at the coffee shop.
Yeah.
Like, that's a brand. You have the person who is like super kind on the subway and lets people sit. That's their brand.
Yeah.
And it's not that you're doing it on purpose. It's just like brand is like the byproduct of who you are, like what actions you take. So it's interesting to switch that around and go with planning the actions to create the brand in like a product per se. And I was watching something was it Steve Jobs? And he was saying with the iPhone selling significance, because it's a human need, and that's all he did was just like sold
Yeah.
significance.
I'll put 1,000 songs in your pocket.
Yeah. And then the white cable coming down your shirt, and you look just like the commercial, and you're like walking down the street. Like Stella's done really good with that, having a custom Stella glass, which I really don't think makes the beer taste any different, because it's not like a porter or something where you need but yet you see that in Times Square, and then you go to the bar downtown and you got the same cup.
Yeah.
And it's a really clever way of making that significant
Yeah.
in a person's life. So that's so interesting with doing that with Verizon, but it's not working.
Yeah.
And you end up just like spitting out numbers, I guess, is what people were into. Now, I want to talk about, because you've led some teams and what have you.
Well, let's just go back to that for a
Okay.
hot second, because I think that one thing that then happens and is a learning from that specific moment is you end up having two campaigns. You have the brand campaign, so you introduce the brand. In that case, it was Droid. That was what they had proprietary ownership of, and the brand was going head-to-head to the iPhone. And then you create the product-specific campaign, which rattles off the tech specs, right? So you still are able to communicate this representation of what Droid is, and so you make people have an emotional connection with it. It was, the voice of the robots, and it was, powerful, and it was almighty, and it enhances you and makes you a faster, better human being. But then when it came down to it, you still needed the campaign that said, oh, and by the way, your phone has a 5.2 gigahertz processor. You know what I mean? So you had the two ended up in market simultaneously. You had to dedicate your resources accordingly and build your media plans accordingly and spend X percentage of your media dollars promoting the brand campaign at the right moment. So maybe your brand campaign lives in the Super Bowl, but then the more product focused campaign lives online and lives on, the weekly news advertising pod where people would be tuned in for a different reason, looking for different information.
So did you guys immediately pivot and create both of those? Or did you focus on the tech specs for like a solid 2 or 3 years and then flip over to adding emotional?
It was the other way.
connection?
So you start with the emotion and then you build into the product.
I see.
Yeah.
But now correct me if I'm wrong. You had said that people were more interested in the product specs than the emotions.
Yeah.
So you started with the motion, wasn't working, went to the tech specs, and then went back. Because, I mean, that's what it goes
You just
back
dial
to.
down to the brand and increase the tech specs. So that's when it becomes sort of like a media mix, and you just figure out where you're spending your dollars.
It's like the special sauce, finding what the balance is between
and
the
I
two.
think the individuals, to your point where you were going in terms of self-branding, look at that ROI as well, return on investment.
Yeah.
And they say, okay, where is my brand flourishing? Should I be on Facebook? Should I be on Instagram? What are the different nuances that are, that I should dial up or down? And constantly evaluating that.
Yeah.
Because you have the data and you have the reaction. And if that perception of you online is that important and going to build your brand, then you have to be using the data to your benefit.
Finding out where you get the most return ROI.
And what you're posting has the most return.
Yeah. Meaning, and what you mean by that, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, is like specifically if you take photos in nature or you take photos at the beach, or like like what you're like it's a consistent,
what you're posting. Yeah.
Even down to like colors. You know, you take bright photos or you take black and white photos or you take.
Yeah. And then like who's engaging with it and are they sharing it?
Yeah. Yeah, because that's another thing that I've noticed too, and this is a tangent, but we can go down it. A lot of people like buying followers, having the followers but not the traction.
Yeah.
So you have 50,000 followers, but you're only getting like 200 likes. And that's something I didn't know either until I spoke to my friend over at ABC, and I was like, oh my God, he makes these like such valid points, because you don't think about this on a Saturday night when you're scrolling through your phone.
Yeah.
But there's so much to it.
Yeah.
And it's not, I don't know if it's, I guess it's difficult, but there is a special sauce, and figuring out what that is for yourself, you can kind of like just master the game.
Yeah.
Because it's really the same.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's like everyone has the same tools.
Yeah.
Maybe not exactly true. Somebody else has more money, but that's a good
Yeah.
tool.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good point. Thank you for bringing us back to that. I want to hop over now to this leadership. So you've been like the VP on marketing campaigns and what have you. And I want to know what you've learned about that. From that, what did you learn about like leadership?
Leadership is communication. It is.
Yes, it is.
It's a lot of communication. It's trust.
Yeah.
It is collaboration. It is selflessness.
Yeah.
I think honestly that it is a lot more exhausting, but far more rewarding than we think it is. I think that you never really know what team you're walking into, no matter what the interview process is like and how in depth it is. I mean, I interviewed for one job for 8 months, and you still like when you start on day one, it's a little bit different, you know? Like
Completely. You're being kind. No,
yeah.
it can be different.
But in a good way, and in a way that you feel very empowered as a leader. And with that becomes a lot of, I don't want to say fear, but people are trusting you with a lot, and it's not only their personal, but their professional development and growth, and, the ability to execute together and collaborate. And that's powerful stuff. And I don't think people really fully understand what management is until they get thrown into it, and it scares a lot of people.
Yeah.
And with that, and I don't necessarily have a secret sauce or a recipe or any insider input to how to avoid that, or this is,
it's almost unavoidable.
if you do these three things, then you will never ever have any sort of problem with management or leadership.
All right, I wish.
But I think just getting yourself into as many situations as you can, and leading from, one of the things I always try and do is make my boss's job easier. So leading from the bottom up and from the top down, I think is really important, and helps cultivate a lot of different emotional and professional skills that allow you to be a better leader.
Yeah. What were some of the challenges that you came up against?
Personalities is sometimes one thing. Performance is another. I guess there's probably are two big buckets that cover all of them, but
but that's
everyone's different, and some people are very sensitive, and some people have had a very traumatic background, and it manifests itself in the work that they do. And it's not saying that they're not they're not performing well or working well with others, but it just, they approach situations completely differently because they come from a different background. And then I think professionally too, some people just aren't good at what they do.
True.
And they probably could be doing something completely different and be a lot more happier and a lot more productive, but they are where they are, and they got there how they got there. And
yeah, I had heard something about that the other day. I hear a lot of stuff the other day. You hear me say that a lot. It's really podcasts and articles. I'm like all about content, consuming it.
yeah.
They were talking about leading a team and how someone may be terrible at that one job,
Yeah.
but they're actually great at another job.
Yeah.
Like, they don't have to be fired. They
Right.
just can be rearranged. You
Yeah.
just rearrange
Yeah.
based on people's skill sets.
Yeah.
Is where I was heading with that. So I guess that would be one of the other challenges coming along with that. Yeah, that's responsibility.
Yeah.
Leading, because it's like your project or your
Yeah.
account,
Yeah.
and you have to deliver
Yeah.
for the boss.
And just to sound totally cliche, I have to
Say
credit
it.
probably my childhood and sort of adult life in sports as to what taught me leadership in ways that wasn't very, book learned, or you didn't really know you were learning it until you walk away from it. You're like, oh, I learned all that. And like that prepared me for where I am today. And, those tough times when you're with a group of, 15 or 20 men, women on a field in dire circumstances, or, on cloud nine because you just had one of the greatest victories together. All those moments really, I think, formed my leadership.
What did you learn?
skills.
What did you learn from sports in terms of like team effort?
It's a selflessness.
It is,
So
goes back to that
yeah,
selflessness.
and a desire and a passion and support, and being in tune with other people's emotions and sort of strengths and weaknesses, so you can help bring them up when they need to be brought up and support them when they're on their way down.
And knowing when they need to be brought up,
Exactly.
kind of anticipating,
Yeah.
being a step ahead.
And I also think it's determination and diligence. So like you never cut corners. You measure twice before you cut. It's
True.
These are little like things that you would get, because if you got caught, then the whole team would get pulled down.
Yeah.
So it's always have your toe behind the lines. You finish your sprints. You don't cheat.
Yeah, it's true.
hard
It's
work
so
pays
true.
off.
It does. And it's so funny because these are cliche.
Yeah.
And I'm doing air quotes for people who can't see, everyone who can't see. But they're so true and
Yeah.
they're so applicable, especially once you actually experience that.
Yeah.
Like measuring twice and cutting once.
Yeah.
That's a big one. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's like waste a lot of product if you,
Oh,
if
yeah.
you screw up the first
Yeah.
time.
Reread your emails before you hit send.
Yes. I learned that lesson
Yeah.
the other day.
Yeah.
And it's so funny when you proofread your own stuff, you miss the mistake. And then
Yeah.
after you send it, you go back and you're like, that's spelled completely incorrectly.
Yeah.
How did I miss that?
Compliment versus compliment. Ugh, kills me
Yeah,
every time.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my God. That's a
Yeah.
good one. That's a really good one. So let's go. So we're talking about sports. We're talking about,
Yeah.
You went to Cornell.
Yes.
But you didn't grow up in New York. You grew
No,
up in
Philly.
Philly.
Yep.
Are your parents into this, like marketing stuff? Or they don't?
No, my mom worked at Prudential, which is a major corporation,
Yeah.
insurance, and then my dad is a small business owner, and my brother is an engineer. And I think that marketing in and of itself is a very hard career to explain to people outside the industry. And so what it comes down to is if a TV commercial is on and it's somewhat related to a brand I work on, I'll be like, I did that.
That's
and
what
they'll be
Katie
like,
does.
Oh, you did a commercial. It's like, yeah, that's right. I did a commercial. You got it. We're good. Or to your point about the Little Bits content, like I'll bring up the video and I'll show it to them and I'll be like, I did that. They're like, great.
Cool.
Like, that's all you got to know. It gets
Yeah.
way too complicated if we want to get into the weeds of it.
It is. It's so there's
Yeah.
so much that goes into a commercial and how complicated it gets. So your father owns a little small business. He's a
Yeah.
small business owner. What did you learn from him about like entrepreneurship or just work ethics? Even your mother.
Yeah,
Or
I think
family.
that it's same things that I think was one of the reasons why they put me in sports at a young age. Is like hard work. You show up. It's about the team. It's not about you.
Yeah.
You put in the hours to reap the rewards. Being very solution oriented. There's no point in complaining. I think that's a big thing, especially with my mother. It's like, okay, that happened. What's now? Move on. Not move on in the sense where you forget it, but move on like, okay,
Learn from it.
yeah, like the milk spilled. You just get a rag.
How are you
Like,
cleaning it
we're
up?
good.
I love that you said that, Katie, because with meetings in particular, if you're working like corporate or something, they
Yeah.
could talk about the problem for the
Yeah.
whole meeting.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, no, 5 minutes on what the problem is,
Yeah.
and the rest of the time on how we're going to solve
Yeah.
it.
Everybody vent,
I
get it
love
out,
that.
and move on.
I love that. You can save so much time in your life if
Oh,
you
yeah.
just get to the solution.
Yep.
Like, if you need to cry over
Yeah.
it or something, you do that. Take that
Yeah.
time, but don't spend all the time doing that. Actually get to the solution.
Yep.
So we were talking about different college educations and all the learning,
Yeah.
and effective management was one of
Yeah.
the things you've learned along the way in
Yeah.
leadership. How does that, so what you've learned through college and studying at those classes, Was there stuff that was like completely, and I don't want to use the word misinformed, but I'm going to use it, in terms of on the job applications?
Yeah.
Or was it pretty connected? Like what the stuff you learned there applied pretty damn well to?
I was a business undergrad, so it's pretty much straightforward. You can't really, like, I took statistics and accounting and marketing and economics. So things that are very much...
Didn't change.
Didn't change. Still haven't changed.
Yeah.
Or might be evolving, and there might be new... there's probably a crypto class now that didn't exist when I was
Jesus.
there.
I don't even know what that is yet.
But yeah, I'd have to say that I feel like the foundation of my education is pretty solid.
Yeah.
And the eye-opening experiences where I was like, oh, that was not what I expected it to be, was more on-the-job training. So as I went from brand side to working at an advertising agency and truly learning like what a producer is and how they work on a production and what that means and what a creative person is versus an account person, that was all real life learning, just because we didn't get into the weeds of things like that when I was in college. So therefore the ongoing education classes have just been an opportunity for me to better my acumen and also my understanding of organizational management. So going back to like leadership and management style and providing other experts in the field a way to explain when things happen in the workplace, whether it's you have to fire somebody or you have a conflict and you need to, the various ways that you can resolve it and how to deal with personalities and things of that nature. I think it's more like the touchy-feely side of business education, but it was simply because you're only in college for 4 years and you don't have enough time to take everything.
You talk about everyone's personalities in a class.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a big difference, I imagine, between like, okay, this is how you do it, but then once you come up against a personality, you're like, wait, but okay, well, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. And I also think taking the professional education classes after college in my 20s was important too, because you just have an emotional maturity that you didn't have in college, where you're like, you just don't know how to, you don't ever, at some point you'll be managing other people, but it's like the bottom of the list of things that you really care about at that time.
Yeah.
So when you get a little bit older and you start seeing it, you also have managers yourself and you start liking and disliking some. Like I had a manager one time, we were working late on a project and, all hands on deck. It's a team effort. She just turned to me and she was like, "You're not leaving tonight." And I was like, "I didn't plan on it, but okay." And just there's this way that she managed me that was just instilling fear time and time and time and again. And I was like, I don't respond well to this. I'm going to respond. I'm here for the team, like hands down. I'll be here for you day in and day out. The way the communication flow was happening, I was like, this isn't positive. So when I was maturing in my management career, I was like, I don't want to relay information to my team in that manner, just because I didn't think it was the most effective way.
Yeah, to get a project done.
Yeah.
Instilling fear. Interesting. So then, okay, so I wrote this question down, and I'm not quite sure why I did, and you tell me if there's an answer to it.
Okay.
And this is the fun and exciting part about podcasts.
Yeah.
What is your biggest tool in digital marketing?
The interwebs.
The interwebs.
Yes.
It's literally just the interwebs.
Yeah. I think that, the growth of the internet created digital, and it's being sliced and diced in many different ways now, where you have websites and you have social media and you have video platforms and you have,
so it's
within
really
each of those, it just gets, broken down further and further and further. Like, what kind of website do you have? Do you have a brand website? Do you have an e-commerce website? Do you have a editorial website? But it's just like, it's the internet.
It literally is the internet.
And it'll change as things become more, I think audio is a big thing, and that's going to start being part of considered digital marketing. So how we're leveraging Alexa and Google Home and other audio platforms that we haven't really, been brought to the mass markets yet.
Yeah.
I think haptic technologies, so touch, sensory, that is going to be a whole nother marketing. So whether it's like in real world, like haptic things that you can touch and sensory
like a virtual
experiences,
reality.
not VR, AR, but actually like touching, and like if you rub your hand over a table and there's like bumps on it, like what do those bumps mean? How do they react to your hands on them in a way that could produce marketing messages?
That's creepy.
Yeah. There's all sorts
And
of stuff.
fascinating.
And then there's AR and VR, and that's, I guess, immersive video technology. But
Yeah.
I would chalk that up to the internet in some way, shape, or form, because you couldn't disperse or share those pieces of content without being connected.
Yeah.
Um,
That was one of the big things at this summit we were at together. I didn't realize how close that is to the mass market future with
Yeah.
what they're creating with VR and AR.
Yeah.
And-
It's funny because I feel like we've been talking about it for years now. The fact that it still feels new is not what I would consider, but
Yeah.
it's still sort of on the tip of everybody's tongue as a new and emerging technology.
They keep calling it new. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with a friend the other day about music from the 60s versus now.
Yeah.
And how great music was. And people were connecting to it because they had a war in
Yeah.
that era. But people were connecting to it. People were there. They wanted to help. There was a we kind of
Yeah.
mentality, not I, or, And nowadays, there's so much of this. Let me disconnect. Let me get away from what's happening. Let me get away from reality.
Yeah.
Virtual reality.
Yeah.
Augmented reality.
Yeah.
Which were these conversations. And that's why I have a feeling it'll probably start to take off pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It's funny how things trend.
Well, it took off quickly with Pokemon Go. So Pokemon Go, to recall for everybody, was
True.
AR. That was the first mass consumption of AR.
And it was good.
And it was
worked.
good. And it worked. And now it's AR still been integrated seamlessly through other brands and other experiences.
Yeah.
But again, I would consider the breakthrough of AR 4 years ago with Pokemon Go and not 2018 with the IKEA furniture catalog.
True. That's a good point. You bring up a good point. Yeah, I've used that. I've tried the Pokemon Go thing. A lot of people got hurt doing that.
Yeah.
Wandering
And
into
businesses
traffic and
got
stuff.
like robbed and stuff. Yeah.
They're like, I need to get my Pikachu.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're coming up here on the end of our time, and I have some curveball questions.
Yeah.
They're rapid fire. Your answers don't have to be rapid fire. They can be rapid fire, whichever
Yeah.
works for you. So let's blow through it here. So do you have any most gifted books that you've gifted people or recommended books?
Yeah. Unbroken.
Unbroken.
Lou Zepparelli. His last
this
name
down.
always escapes me. He was
Unbroken.
World War II vet. He was a phenomenal runner, track star, but because of the war, he was unable to compete in the Olympics. Ends up fighting, being POW in a Japanese
Yeah, it was POW.
yeah,
Prisoner of War camp.
prisoner of war
Yeah.
camp. And his life story is far and away the most amazing thing I've ever heard. Angelina Jolie made a movie about his life, I think 3 years ago. I unfortunately don't think the movie did the book any justice,
Yeah.
just because what this gentleman went through, and mind over matter to the 10th degree.
For real, yeah,
it's
survival. at its core.
survival. It's fantastic, like how he came back, his sense of forgiveness, and I mean, it's a remarkable story. I highly recommend it to everybody. I gift it as one of the books that I think is just a fascinating read about a fascinating
Yeah.
person. And I have to say, I know he passed away, I think 3 years ago at the age of like 91 or early 90s, and I'm so bummed I never got to meet him. Like, would have loved to hear him speak or just even like
Be in the presence of
shake
that.
his hand. It was just it's a fascinating story.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to read that.
Yeah.
Do you have this is one. Do you have any is there a common piece of incorrect advice that you hear in your field? And it could be from like marketing, from
Yeah.
leadership to, I mean, it's a broad question.
Yeah.
So you don't have to like,
I think one thing that resonated with me, and I forget which book I read it in or which podcast I heard it, was just you shouldn't set goals. And I know everyone's always like, you should be goal oriented, set your goals, achieve them, blah blah blah. And this person's point was you should set progress points, because we should, as people, both professionally and personally, be constantly progressing. Because what happens is when we as individuals reach a goal, you're done.
yeah.
What else do you do? Emotionally, you're deflated, you're let down, you're on cloud nine because you achieved your goal, and then the day after you kind of drop back down. You're like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
And I experienced that at one point in my life. I set a goal for myself that I wanted to have a specific title by a specific point, and I got there, and I was like, oh, okay, I got the title.
Yeah.
Now what do I do? I guess I set a new goal, but then I was like, but I'm going to feel like this again when I reach that new goal.
That fulfillment. Because
Yeah.
you're lacking the fulfillment you think the achievement has. Because
Yeah.
that was another question I had for
Yeah.
you, but you're answering it
They
perfectly
they
right
tie
now.
in together. So I think that
Yeah.
was a piece of advice that we constantly give ourselves and we give others around us, to set goals, set goals, set goals. And I was like, let's set progress. Like, how do we want to keep moving forward? Because that's where we should go as people and as a society.
Yeah.
Forward, not just up and down, stop and go.
Just creating goals.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, because progress. That's like
Yeah.
that's the secret sauce to life is
Yeah.
feeling progression.
And then your future self then becomes a better version of yourself today. But if you set a goal, your future self might be no better off than where you are today.
That's so true. So what happened for you when you reached that moment in time of getting that goal? Did you just reframe it in your mind to like, I'm going to change this to progress points?
I didn't know it at the time that's how I needed to reframe my thinking. But using that as an example and a catalyst, that's why I continuously feel like progress is the way to go and not setting goals.
Huh. That's smart.
Don't get me wrong. I want to achieve, but I want to achieve in a way that continues that progress forward and not
That fulfills.
just, yeah.
Yeah. Good. Ooh, I like that. I like that. Do you have a favorite failure? Something that, or an apparent failure that set you up for success?
In working in life, there's lots of failures. I feel like there's not one specific that
comes to mind.
Yeah, that
Okay.
comes to mind.
How about, most worthwhile investment, be it like a degree in college
Yeah.
or money you spent on something in particular or skill set or emotional investment?
Yeah. I think that college was definitely an investment that I'm really grateful for, not only for the academics, but for the exposure. Again, going to Cornell and having an opportunity to study with some of the most elite individuals in the world, but then
good
also get
college.
exposure to a lot of great minds and thinking. And then coming out of it and knowing that I had a supportive alumni network was extremely important to me. And also having the opportunity to play sport in college and having that entire Division I athletic experience was like everything you could ever ask for, all wrapped into one big present.
What did you play?
Lacrosse.
Do you still?
I coach and am on the board of City Locks here in the city.
Okay.
But yeah, I played for a while for Nyack, but then, at some
Yeah.
point you just kind of,
Yeah, it changes. Like
you get a little slower.
it goes. Oh yeah, I guess. Do you exercise? Do you have like
Yes.
exercise regimens that you?
Yeah,
every
I still
day?
compete in triathlons and do a little bit things.
Yes.
So yeah, so I keep myself very well versed in that sort of competitive field.
Do you try to keep it like 5 days a week of exercise?
Yeah.
About
Yeah.
thereabouts. I know it's difficult in the city to like keep up the exercise and like when do you do it, especially if you're working 9 to 5. It's
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness, how to fit it in. But I commend you on that.
You figure it out. I think that's one thing, doing sports my whole life and doing multiple sports, plus being a student and being a friend and a daughter and a cousin and, everything else under the sun, is you just figure out time management and becomes part of your personality and
does.
becomes innate. So I just figure it out.
I love that. I love that. What does success mean to you? Or your definition of success?
Relationships. Success to me is making an impact on others, both like romantically and then platonically and through family and through professional. It's like success is walking away from a moment and knowing you had the best experience and left the best impression on the people around you.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can't make it through this life alone. And it's so relationships.
Yeah.
That's a running theme with some of my other episodes.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
Success and relationships. Oh, good answer. Yes,
Yeah.
these answers. Is there anything you believe in that others may think is insane? No is fine.
No.
Because like there's some, like, I don't know if I'm using the right, like idiosyncratic or like, I probably just used the wrong word. Like, well, whatever.
I believe in acupuncture.
Acupuncture.
So the mixing of the East and the West. I think living in LA for 4.5 years definitely opened up my eyes to more homeopathic approaches to taking care of ourselves.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What did you find any big differences, jarring differences in culture in terms of East and West Coast?
Yeah.
Did you do you appreciate this side? Do you have a preference?
They're totally different. That's
They
all I
are.
can say. They're
There's
totally
no way to-
different.
It's like apples and oranges.
Yeah.
you can't even say you have a preference on it.
Right.
I mean, the weather there is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's certain things that each city has going for it. Like, yes, LA has the weather. Yes, New York City has mass transportation. Despite people's like hems and haws about how sometimes it breaks down and getting to Brooklyn on the weekends is not the best
Yeah.
because half the subways are shut down.
Yeah.
But alas, there is mass transportation, and unfortunately, LA cannot compare in terms of people moving. Yes, LA has hikes in the ocean. We just have to seek it out from different ways, and you might have to get into a car or a
You gotta
plane,
drive.
or a train, but you'll get there. But other than that, they're just totally different lifestyles.
Yeah.
Different personalities, different reasons for being, different industries motivate and fuel the cities.
Yeah, well, LA in particular
Yeah.
and New York in particular. Well, it's really both.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to move out there eventually. I think LA.
I think it's worth it.
I do. It'd be nice to have a house and a car. I don't know. That sounds like something nice to
The
have.
car's overrated.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
And cars yes, cars overrated. And it's also scary to see how many people text and drive. So if there's one PSA I can put on this podcast is do not text and drive. It is just not worth it.
Yeah.
It can wait. It can totally wait.
Do not text and walk.
Yeah.
People do some crazy stuff in
Yeah.
this midtown area with their cell phones,
Right.
not looking up.
No.
Texting and driving, that was one that blew my mind because when cell phones first came out, I was like, oh, like for a second,
Yeah.
like, let me do it. Like the first time I encountered it, I was like, oh, I can send this quickly.
Yeah.
And then once I realized the weight, actual physical weight of the vehicle I'm driving at
Yeah.
the speed I'm moving,
Yeah.
you need to focus.
You're in a 2-ton machine. You are, it's
Yeah.
no holds bar. It's no joke. It is no joke.
That's good PSA.
Yeah.
That's a really good PSA. Okay, 2 left.
Yeah.
What mistakes have you made that have proved essential in learning? Are there any that come to mind?
This is a hard one.
It is. I mean,
Yeah.
but that's the fun part about these questions. Like whatever comes out.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a particular answer to the question.
I think sometimes when either it's so an easy one is reading the wrong address or something, right? So
Yeah.
doing something in haste. So boiling it up to that higher thinking is like doing something in haste is a mistake that then leads to sometimes good outcomes, but sometimes some negative consequences. So just don't do it in haste. Take the time.
Yeah,
Take
like
a
that
breather.
measuring once.
Yeah, measure twice, cut once.
Yes.
Yeah, just like haste makes waste is another thing my mother used to say growing up. So like,
These are great
and
themes.
it leads to mistakes, which
Yeah.
could cause some big problems.
Yeah.
Professionally, it could lead to maybe a multi-million-dollar mistake because you had a decimal wrong or something like that. And personally, you could miss a boat, literally or figuratively, or miss being able to spend time with friends because you had the wrong night in your calendar or
Yeah.
something like that.
You might have just answered the second question as well. If there's a quote that you could put on a billboard for millions to see,
Yeah.
what would it be? Is there one that comes to mind? I was thinking measure twice, cut once,
Yeah.
which is a really good
Yeah,
one to
it's
put
a
for
good
people
one,
to
but
see.
I feel like there's something so much more prophetic or mindful that we could put on a billboard for people. One that I pulled years ago, although Albert Einstein has a ton of great quotes, but one that I
Yes.
pulled randomly from a poet was, I'd rather look back on my life and know that I lived the width of it than the length of it. So it's a way of saying kind of like live for every day, live life to its fullest, and maximize the time we have now. Don't just kind of like putt along and hope that you'll live to 100, but then look back and realize that you have nothing,
Yeah.
nothing of value or of like happiness to pull from.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a really good quote. I've never heard that one before either.
Yeah. I have to find out. It's on my refrigerator. And for the life of me, can't remember who the author is, but that's a good one.
I can put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
That's really good. Katie, thank you for taking the time to do this
thank you
with
for
me
having
today.
me. Hopefully it was clear and coherent and
It
helpful.
was. And this would be so funny if you like show this to your parents. Be like, now you can get the
Yeah.
a very watered down version of what I do at great
Yes.
lengths. So that's so funny. But thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. Where can we find you?
I keep all my social stuff private, which is funny because working in digital, maybe it's because I know what actually happens on the interwebs. I just kind
Yeah.
of keep everything private, but I'm on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
That's probably the
place.
easiest place to find me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have a personal website. I don't have the chops or the dev skills to code that one, but maybe one day. I do want to learn to code one day, so that's on my list.
Yeah, WordPress makes it pretty easy.
Yeah. Very
Or
turnkey.
Wix.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real. They make it very easy. But Okay, great. So on LinkedIn, hey, thank you for doing this.
Thank
And
you.
enjoy the acupuncture.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, if you're enjoying the podcast, check me out on Instagram at _entertainmentx_. And if you're listening to the podcast on iTunes, please rate and review it. I love feedback. Have a great day.